This is a video regarding American news racketeering. For example, Wethersfield police, families that answered the phones for them since I was a kid. They were also involved with people involved with undercover police forms and overt criminal enterprises, kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lives, with courts and with police forms and with political families. Overt criminal enterprises, plural, private ones also. They get away with it by pretending passions and emotions, by forbidding people calm means to defend themselves, where offensive evidence racketeering with the news is multi-front, with the interbranch stacking fabricated audio and video into databases, exploiting all that is tied to even manifest next to schools being and having been exploited all along Church Street in Old Wethersfield. A house on the corner of Church Street in Old Wethersfield, the business or whatever it is that built that old building right across from it, connected to a whole bunch of people, to and as a whole bunch of people on Central Connecticut State University involved with predicate acts, with various natures of police forms, including former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. That's in New Britain, Central, from Connecticut from Wethersfield to there. There was also I forgot his name, Joseph Dennis. I never had a conversation with John Dennis. Joseph Dennis is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed he was influenced as a kid to make sequence shifts, make exceptions to pretend he knew me before that. And you know, God knows what he wrote about the times I saw him. In other words, these are people involved with Facebook. Wethersfield police and judges have roles with rape threats and with uses of them to force a since proven child abuser principal and others then and now involved. Also, the extended family members of a house on my street with the name Scalora and with the name Philip Colo, is a guy named Bob Chase involved with various natures of courts, involved with identity thefts and frauds, falsified police with this Phil Colo, and with people with the families that answered the phones for the police through time, involved with predicate acts on my street, attaching me and other kids to fake locations, fake ties to their kids, fake natures of ties to their kids. Now these are intercities people that have had roles with predicate acts, acting while other police forms pretend to perform stuff because they have to hide their roles with predicate acts with databases, identity thefts and frauds, wire crime acts and methods recorded. So they're preventing people from reporting methods of crime that the police are involved with, also with the overt criminal enterprises, also with foreign and domestic doctors, also with their remote uses of their readings of and uses of evidences. No. And they say, oh, well, sue us. No, so these are caught outside with the courts already criminally involved with them. Various natures of courts and the same natures of courts. And on off the state judicial branch offices. Alfaenza family and other houses around the judicial branch offices. Whole bunch of people tied to the house on my street involved with the house on my street and with all the other houses tied to them. As two families are involved with answering the phones for the police, a Mendez family and there's a Smith family. There's a Jamie Smith and a David Smith that are involved also with the fire departments, intercities and intercity and intracity. Now these are people involved on and off private campuses and on and off public school campuses, and homeschool kids also involved with their family members and themselves individually grouped and together, hiding lie progressions because their roles with predicate acts that are evidence reception oriented, that are identity reception oriented. They consciously use how they know that there is mental health care corruption that is also intercultural. In other words, when they're pretending to be about inclusion, they're preventing people free speech from demonstrating how all ground locations are tactically denatured by that method that was with the slavery and forced torture of our founding parents, who had to hide their roles, forcing the other founding parents to have the courage to agree to fight with a fake narrative, to hide their roles, to entertain what couldn't be entertained in the Constitution unabridged simultaneously. Its language would have manifest. I tell it best, but you have to follow mandated law. See, Facebook is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated being used outside of courts by them to hide the live progressions of themselves and of their kids, and per how they were used when they were kids for predicate acts with databases and methods of them, whole methods, predicate act delivery system methods bound by one method recorded. We'll refer to it as a predicate acts delivery system method. I am not a lawyer. Robert Cheverry is a lawyer of, in a 2006 case, of former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin. And his testimony and his co-defendant's testimony are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. People involved with the depositions leading up to that in those courts. The United States military representatives recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with ones from Wethersfield with the FBI and CIA and their family members, and people next to schools involved with identity thefts and frauds, predicate acts, wrongdoing, sequence shifts, identity thefts and frauds instances, real and made up, mixed. There's a house next to Webb School, for example, with a Kovinskis family that is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people with the military, involved with religious corruption that is also juxtaposed sexual, medical. See, they have the counters to it in collusion with it because they have their kids used. They have people that work, many people that work from Institute of Living I never had a conversation with. Other ones I told them I just wanted to have a lawyer. Other ones I told them, like a Leahy family, I didn't even have a conversation with them. I didn't have words of them at all. I noted that. And on Facebook, for example. They have whole fake conversations with me, pretending I had conversations about police equipment with them or anyone. I never had a conversation about police surveilling my father. These are people that were involved with federal criminals my father proved were federal criminals in an NLRB case that was proven after I got out of high school. While I was in high school, those federal criminals, overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and people involved with union pension thefts, people involved with uses of they were telling speeches to the other union people, and they were telling lies. They were using readings of statutes where they have the right to lie about other candidates. They leave out exceptions. They leave out their roles with men and women associated with Trinity College, UConn, Wesleyan, Central Connecticut State University, Tunxus Community College, Middlesex Community College, leading up to the World Trade Center attack and in it. In other words, when they go about their jobs and do their facts, well, this is how we're supposed to do it. And this is them when they make name treatments. It is also juxtaposed delusions raw. And that would have been overcome by ourselves too, but they are rules, crimes, predators. So this is an identity theft / fraud method. This Leahy family of medical family of doctors that are also involved with ones, I don't know if they have badges too, but they're men and women involved with the intelligence community. There are judges, retired and standing, involved with predicate acts with them since they were a kid, identity thefts and frauds. Rules with a O'Brien family with criminally foreign influence uses of the corners on the principal child abuser street. And I still didn't get an answer. And they attached me and the other, since I was a kid at that same school. Me to fake words with my family member, and my family member fake words with me. Multi-front with the news too. And so this is worse than extortion and slander and libel and fraud simultaneously. These are people also involved with remote uses of elections locations, remote uses of both parties' candidates. There are proofs that there's a Julie Morin. I barely know her. You know, little girl. She was a victim of people lying to her, or lying to the ones around her. And there's an Amy Morin Bello, and there's a Russ Morin. There are a whole bunch of people with the name Morin. Also involved with this. But nothing personal against them. They're trying to make things look personal because their roles with the sequence shifts, for example, and with physical delusions that are relevant. So we have people with physical delusions that are involved with databases at the schools and roles with answering the phones and being coached to lie about what is recorded over the phones. And then they're fabricating audio and video transcripts. NBC Connecticut News replaced what is communications that were over the phone, and over an answering machine, a whole bunch of different messages from a principal child offender they forced with others, and more confessions and more names are brought up. I still didn't get responded to. They are forcing people to speak through other people. They confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed. It's because this is regarding also in 2006 case, for example, former director of the FBI, former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act, in his defendant capacities. People with Hartford courts and New Britain's courts and other Connecticut courts and their family members were involved with remote uses of the ground locations where there were offensive evidence reception that's criminally foreign influenced. They attach me and Saudis to forced words, to force roles with predicate acts against ourselves and against our countries. And to say everyone's telling everyone to shut up because you have investigators with no integrity. So they have constant problems with certain areas. Constant problems like people fight and stab each other. They're fighting. They just continue. Where's they going to go? Where are they going to go? Where people go when they get hurt. See, that's been juxtaposed with people making fact treatments about things that have nothing to do with that, with what goes on in the medical locations, into the fire locations, or the campuses, database locations, private ones simultaneously. Kept needing to hide people, the same sequence shifts, roles with instances of identity theft, frauds relevant to evidence reception, big world, small world stuff people end up getting asked about later. We have complete remote uses of investigators. For example, associated with the January 6th Commission, used to measure and maintain other than what was obligated by honesty to speak for American history about what led up to the first insurrection. Method /S sustained against the Congress. We know had roles with slavery still entrenched, North and South. We know it had roles with Jim Crow, used to hide how North and South were and are in collusion with that. Tactically denatured identity, the ground locations, all of them, designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Designed to be increasingly self-valued by everybody, blamed on other things other than selves. Time, reasons, etc. That it defended. Premises treatments defended. Tactically, criminally foreign influence. Time treatments defended. Tactically incapable of defending their own passions regarding words like science and theater and advertisement, for example, that's differentially. This is a moving advertisement for the proverbial devil. Nations A1 through Z, however many there are. So all we need to have is mandated law followed. So in other words, they have employed what's going to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in New York City, for example. There is worse than criminal incompetence juxtaposed with physical delusions that are in collusion, criminally foreign influence to make the outcome /S. Not just of the negative value, nature, progression, acts, and natures, acts like predicate acts. Now, so when we group it this way, in relationship to a breaching method causing these shootings are predicate acts. But these are wrongdoers. These are victim predators. These are worse than psychopath, calm speaking people with our schools, and anger speaking, both in collusion, insidious natures of positive and negative treatments in collusion. When the human identity of volume is in a positive value nature progression, it will be other. See, but this has not been since semi-ancient times. This just reminds. So they also have hate groups that are undercover with police, so they pretend they're just legitimate people who are just directed to be. And where that's juxtaposed, true, there also proves that they self-value it not true, mixed with that. Like the little cowards they spread lies through the intelligence community, use their misinformation, and like for example the Democrats against the Democrats and the Republicans against the Republicans. Democrats and Republicans are represented in the FBI, self-valued, criminally foreign influence, originally and still. Since before its founding, it's what are they doing? Witch trials. They weren't capable of countering the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts and natures, acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal and insidious natures, wrongdoers. They weren't capable of countering their uses of words like crimes, where and how they had been roles with that breaching method sustained, even with sickly distinctly against everyone with slavery. The torture on top of that, which is additional to that. This is volume science. And that was a torture against everyone. See, we would have come to this, but only fake people using passions and emotions to dishonestly are allowed to speak. So outside of courts, they are preventing people from using our free speech and calm voices, and they are preventing us from using yelling to force mandated law followed, to force morality followed. Then they pretend because you raise your voice, you're immoral. You have some real sick fake punks because they were child abuse since they were kids. That's recorded also. Follow mandated law for WFSB that attach me and little kids to fake words and to fake locations through time. This is ongoing increasingly. They also pretend that they have all kind of wire crime acts and methods where they have people calling the police and then the police go to people's houses. Then they hide what they've been doing before that and do it more. Forging names, switching names, fabricating audio and video transcripts to replace what is actually recorded. These are people involved leading up to the World Trade Center attack. In that attack, locations, the Ninth Circuit Court right next to it. They're involved with post-dating of documents leading up to and from inside the court, insidiously to make the court see post-dated documents that appeared as if they'd been filed late. They were filed on time. That was proven after. That led up to the 2006 District Court case. That was in Manhattan. That led up to this 2000 District Court case with defendant and his defendant capacities, the former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. These are also people involved with Joshua Julian and with a Joshua Stryker, who are involved with Facebook, with judges and their family members, with people on the child sex offender registry, and people who answer the phones for the Wethersfield Police in intercities, forging names, switching names. One of them on off Trinity College says his name is Darth Vader. This is also where and how they pretend things in the past aren't relevant to them having been stacking predicate acts into databases, interbranch, individually grouped and together. They have methods, individually grouped and together manifest. So this is a police report. And this is asking for the help and has been asking for the help of CNN and Fox News. There is no reason they should pretend it's personal. If they don't like the language I used about a person or group, that was the show Sequence Shifts. What's actually recorded was hid. So the show's passions and emotions being used by the news media and by the interbranching cases. They've been predicate acts against citizens since founding. Witch trials. There were descriptions of what caused witch trials. They're out of their minds. You have some physically delusions wrought families, foreign and domestic, with the medical, and then they have their colleagues, like they have a Laura Saunders, involved intercities with locations next to schools, that are involved with various natures of drugs, crimes, and medicines crimes that these doctors have with their patients and criminals before they got caught, including sexual crime roles. So you have some sick men and women who are doctors pretending they had conversations with people. They should have listened when I told them I want a lawyer. Then they present they make exceptions. Just because you have someone who's a lawyer next to you doesn't mean they're not criminally foreign influence collusion too. We're going to address that originally still. In other words, if someone's telling you you're black and you're a slave, and here's your lawyer, fight other, and that doesn't get proven wrong, the lawyer's in collusion. There's means to discern that. We know this. They're playing stupid because they're preventing mandated law outside of courts, and they're using a truth. Oh, you have to sue for your rights, as a lie. The law says that they're supposed to follow the law outside of courts. So now respond for the Wethersfield police, forging and switching names, introducing more names. They called me up about 5-6 months ago with someone who said their name is Sullivan, and it was a man. And that's more people involved too. Houses on housing and locations on Park Street and on off New Park Ave with locations next to that school. And on and off that, there's a Lena's Pizza involved with drugs and medicines crimes and sexual abuses of little girls with the military, foreign and domestic, with overt criminal enterprises and with private ones. A whole bunch of people tied to the agencies and the directors, originally still delusions raw. It's not hard to discern. They have employed hurt against people, victim predator reactions of the media where they say criminals. They want to say A or B. It's the criminals or the police. They're in collusion. You don't see that those kids in New York have coordinated on off the campuses connected. Collusion with which was already all locations. That was designed to only be capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. So people could use truths for lies about the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Again, acts like predicate acts. Natures like wrongdoers. Like wrongdoing itself. Like criminal insidiousness natures of people, things, acts, and methods. So these were methods bound by one breaching method. So we had by correlation in science pure, true, and religion true. We have 3 branches of government manifest, and then there are exception like that, like the service, like private tied to them, services people, like first responders, like people that just give their lives and their narratives for the identities that are reading history. Oh, well, this is the show. This is what the facts. This is traditionally this region. Get that. Follow mandated law for them. You don't see how all these countries, there's a massive migration here, and they want to keep it. Oh, it's this, that. If you want to keep it simple, keep it out of the breaching predicate acts delivery system method here, there, entrenched before our founders were born. in our faces, right through our schools, through our educators. They say, oh, George Washington held slaves. They leave out what was simultaneously how they didn't have free speech. They had to hide their roles with the American Revolution. Oh, George Washington, he didn't hide his roles. Yeah, he did. With the laws, all locations, areas, and states, since before that, when they were still colonies, they had already sustained roles as database relationships, as what you can't sustain roles with and as a value nature system, and without having nature demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, natures, and they blame those on other things other than themselves, even when they had no other choice or other means to. They didn't know what to say. Witch trials. They don't know what to say now because they came through these criminally foreign influenced campuses and database relationships private simultaneously, and uses of body dumping spots and of killers of overt criminal enterprises and private ones simultaneously, recorded how kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, finite, active, progressive lies, identity thefts and fraud styles, nature's needs and roles. So when they use the words crime and criminals on Fox News, on MSNBC, and on CNN, and or on Fox Connecticut News, and or on WFSB, they know that they are predators against those kids on and off their campuses connected. They are still involved with sustained uses of and abuses of kids attaching me and my family members and other kids and their family members to fake words. They lie about, they had fake conversations with me about legal cases as doctors with drug cliques that are personally involved with federal crimes, with uses of those drug cliques for identity thefts or frauds, for them needing to hide when they're implying that we knew them in context we didn't. I don't know Rick Cianfaglione at all. After he got out of high school, he had to make confessions because Tim O'Brien and others on my street are associated with this intercities. They have the 3 spots at the end of the Berlin Turnpike and the spots next to them involve with predicate acts of juxtaposed natures. So you have no one speaking for the safety of your schools. They are doing it with passion and emotions anyway, because this already used all the locations from off them as victim predators to keep them self-valuing how on off them is already manifest. A nature of logic, a nature of theater, positive and negative treatments and collusion. So follow mandated law and let's go. Let's get a response for the Wethersfield campuses and the Wethersfield police forging and switching names, making confessions about this town's police chief. At least 1 year ago, was also involved with predicate acts, remote uses of the same house, /S, since before I was born. Forewarned. So make sure I get a response. They're telling people to call names to people who try to speak calmly, and then they lie about when they get a response. People, because we can discern them lying. They attach me and my family to fake words, fake pleading in cases. Simultaneously, when they're attaching us to fake words about cases with others. One thing they do is pretend, oh, well, doctor said this, because their delusion's raw. They don't know how to speak for the mind. So then they want to have a debate, like little 6th graders. That's why you have a problem with people killing each other in New York. You can't discern that science never spoke, that and how science never spoke for New York City. How could it pretend to be science at any age? It's a very simple understanding that predicate acts delivery system method against Native Americans sustained. Then our founding parents were born. Not free speech, anyone. Forced groups, forced, entertained, with logic. Forced pretend it's about other things. That's what they're doing. You have some sick, fake punks pretending to perceive prejudice in other people as evidence reception racketeering natures, black and white, male and female judges, incapable of defending themselves and of affording us proper anything to all locations. They're valuing. The reason I have to use the word value too is because I work with how nature uses it. Nature is identity's simultaneous relationship to positive and negative, where and how it demonstrates one identity of volume will only stay positive unto itself, increasingly here, or it is forced from here, Earth's distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the rest of space nature, being our relationship to that which is actually simultaneous. So, follow mandated law. The courts, judges, and prosecutors, and states' attorneys, and private ones, and overt criminal enterprises and private ones, they collude uses of their locations to hide sequence shifts of themselves and of their family members and of their neighbors, and of people associated with the social spots they go to. This was a method that knew that we would have to use correlation properly. We would have to describe how the victims, 3 branches, service next to them, all the colonists and or citizens, the Native Americans, because I was sustained against them first too, and because they're the semi-nature addition to the abridged Constitution that our founders were only allowed to be able to pretend, sufficiently having been set up unabridged. They wanted us to explain about how they didn't have free speech and how they had speech employed, forced, by a breaching method. They wanted us to explain how they were slaves, fact-cheating nature slaves. They wanted us to explain how they were tortured. They wanted us to explain how if they tried to explain that, even back in context where no one's going to be listening, you know the words. That's where and how, why they black and white agencies, using their language, they forced, sickly distinctly, everyone a slave here. They definitely hurt black people worse. And that is definitely still hurting them worse. What enables it is the tactically denatured identity of the grounds, identity of relationship to itself, and means to it. Means that we could actually afford. Since before cars, we could afford a scale of infrastructure better than this. But we didn't have the agreements because all those locations were database relations. In other words, they were time treatment, they were insidious natures of positive and negative treatments of collusion. Illusion's vast. Control your mass. One person. Follow mandated law. In other words, they're speaking about Facebook. They're trying to force them to include because the people who answer the phones and the people who respond to information on Facebook, they're being coached and having been coached to hide lipoaggressions, hide roles with identity thefts and frauds. They tell you right in the news, someone steals your identity. In other words, they should all. People shouldn't have to worry about their identity being stolen. We don't have one identity ground location following mandated law, and they're pretending other offensively. So they have to make names, start fights with people. They have to pretend other people do. They have these little groups they call their constituencies. That's not why they care about it. Follow mandated law. So I have to keep using other people's names. For all the people in Wethersfield, speaking through others, using my name. Tell them to fear God if they're FBI, CIA. Tell them to fear God if they're military. Make sure they don't fucking, excuse my language, make sure they don't switch names, forge names again. Make sure they get on paper now, Wethersfield Police. Respond for all these different polices. Each year they're doing it more and more. More officers forge and switch names. Came to my house out of nowhere because they had to hide lie progressions they put from before that. So we're going to go back. And we're going to go, now, I want a response now, why they forge names, switch names. Various natures of courts, fake things. I caught them outside their courts with their investigators, with their investigations, used criminally foreign influenced. I caught them using the campuses remotely to hide that, to hide their actually recorded natures. You fear God. You don't let people report child abuses still. Right through administrations, no. It's not just these religious locations. They're being coached to it by the sick courts and by the sick police forms, and all private tied to them. Recorded out, kept needing to hide the same lie progressions, remote uses of their family members. That's why they're attaching everyone to fake words. They're making them themselves for time reason. Everyone's a knave around everyone. That's the standard, knave. In other words, abridged constitution. Follow mandated law. On time! Now! Don't switch the subjects. All these subjects are connected. I've been asking you guys to fix the fake news and words you attach me and others to since before they caught the principal child defender. I still not have a response from the school. Because they already, the same people involved with it already had attached me and my family members to fake words about legal cases and other people as people that were involved with federal criminals before they got caught. They were pretending other things they were involved with a whole bunch of natures of crimes. The doctors involved with the courts. You can't see we have sick courts? You're going to see it because it's recorded. So follow mandated law for them now.